Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Marina Grossu from Washington, D.C. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. Pope Francis reflected on his recent apostolic journey to Lisbon, Portugal, for the 37th World Youth Day. The Holy Father said that World Youth Day was a chance to encounter Christ, grow in faith, and experience God's tender love for all his children. The statements from the Holy Father came on Wednesday during his weekly general audience at the Vatican, which was the first since his customary July break. The Pope recalled that God set in motion young people's hearts and steps to go and find Jesus. The Holy Father also prayed for people affected by natural disasters that have afflicted Slovenia and Georgia, and entrusted the Ukrainians to the protection of Saint Edith Stein on her feast day. The US House Judiciary Committee announced on Wednesday that it had discovered proof of multiple Federal Bureau of Investigation field offices working together to coordinate an inquiry into traditionalist Catholics earlier this year. In February of this year, a leaked memo from the FBI's Richmond, Virginia field office was made public online. It mentioned looking into radical traditionalist Catholics who the agency suspected may have been associated with a far-right white nationalist movement. The document received criticism from American bishops, attorneys general, and lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Over the past few months, senators and congressmen have questioned both Attorney General Merrick Garland and FBI Director Chris Wray about the matter. The Republican-controlled committee has been leading an investigation into the FBI's actions in Richmond. The committee's chairman, Ohio Representative Jim Jordan, threatened to hold Wray in contempt last month if he did not provide copies of the records that had been subpoenaed but had been redacted. U.S. Catholic bishops slammed the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act's planned regulations, which would require employers to provide accommodations for employees who obtain abortions. The Pregnant Workers Fairness Act was passed by Congress in 2022 and created additional safeguards for workers who are pregnant or recently gave birth. The Biden administration's U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission on Monday issued proposed regulations that defined abortion as one of the related medical conditions. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops initially supported the bill for its new protections for pregnant women. Now, USCCB Committee on Pro-Life Activities Chairman Bishop Michael Burbidge accused the EEOC of distorting the law. Bishop Burbidge said that the proposed rules are contrary to the legislative intent of the act. Republican Senator Bill Cassidy said the decision to disregard the legislative process to inject a political abortion agenda is illegal and deeply concerning. Isaac Herzog, the president of Israel, expressed his support for Archbishop Pier Battista Pizzaballa, the Catholic Patriarch of Jerusalem, in a private meeting after a wave of attacks and displays of prejudice by radical Jews against Christians and holy sites in Israel. President Herzog was present with his wife and a delegation to offer the visit of solidarity at the monastery of Stella Maris. Archbishop Pizzaballa was accompanied by the Carmelites of Haifa, the Orthodox Patriarch Theophilus, and other Christian representatives. According to the Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem, the Christian leaders responded by expressing their satisfaction with this act that supports the call for the establishment of a closer framework of peace, understanding, and coexistence. A complaint against state officials and the state foster system revealed that Massachusetts foster care authorities wrongfully refused a Catholic couple's application to become foster parents because they adhered to Catholic teaching on marriage, sex, and gender. Michael and Catherine Burke, the potential foster parents, live in Southampton, Massachusetts. Mike is an Iraq War veteran, a small business owner, and an organist for multiple Diocese of Springfield parishes. Catherine is a former special education caregiver, a small business owner, and a cantor for the Diocese of Springfield. The lawsuit was filed on Tuesday in the U.S. District Court in Massachusetts. The lawsuit counters the Department of Children and Families records, claiming that the Burkes are not supportive, saying they believe that all children should be loved and supported, and they would never reject a child placed in their home. A number of Catholic bishops in England have endorsed the Catholic Union's initiative to relax the 50% restriction on faith-based enrollment in new free schools. The coalition government implemented the restrictions in 2010, and it applies to overcrowded English free schools with a religious focus. The Catholic Union launched the Scrap the Cap campaign earlier this year, saying the policy has made it impossible for Catholic bishops to sanction new Catholic free schools, as it would lead to pupils being turned away based on their Catholic faith. Right Reverend Marcus Stock said lifting the cap would be beneficial for the Catholic Education Service, the Catholic Union, and all those who benefit from the diversity provided by the Catholic school sector. American nurse Alix Dorensenville and her daughter, who was kidnapped in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, nearly 2 weeks ago, have been freed, according to a statement released from the nonprofit Christian ministry El Roy Haiti. The ministry said armed men kidnapped the mother-daughter duo on July 27th, and their captors demanded a ransom of $1 million. Hundreds of Haitians took to the streets to protest the kidnapping. More than 165,000 Haitians have fled their homes amid a surge in gang violence. Protesters marched through Port-au-Prince, the nation's capital, calling for protection from violent gangs who are pillaging nearby neighborhoods. On his 4-day visit, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk held meetings with the Iraqi government and judicial officials, most notably Prime Minister Mohammed al-Sudani and Speaker Mohammed al-Halbousi. They discussed a handful of human rights issues, including the death penalty, overcrowding in prisons, and the need for strengthening human rights institutions in the country. He also called on the authorities to declare an official moratorium on the use of the death penalty in Iraq, where more than 11,000 people remain on death row. The High Commissioner highlighted the crucial role of women's empowerment and gender equality and raised alarm over attempts to ban the use of these universally accepted terms, as well as the threats and intimidation against women working on these issues. Pro-life group Susan B. Anthony List blasted Ohio for rejecting a constitutional amendment that was the crux of the state's conflict on the issue of abortion. Issue 1 was a ballot initiative that Ohio voters rejected on Tuesday. It would have increased the required barrier for amending the state constitution from a simple majority to a 60% supermajority. The Susan B. Anthony List released a statement that said it is a sad day for Ohio and a warning for pro-life states across the country. The statement said that progressives funneled millions from outside groups to mislead the people of Ohio. Voters in Ohio will decide in November whether to support the ballot initiative that would create a so-called fundamental right to abortion. The amendment would permit abortion until the period at which a fetus can survive outside the womb, which is typically around 24 weeks into pregnancy. Iranian authorities have interrogated and arrested more than 90 journalists since the widespread protests shook the Islamic Republic last year, local media reported on Tuesday. Large-scale protests broke out in September 2022 after 22-year-old Iranian Kurd Mahsa Amini died in custody while being held captive by the so-called morality police for allegedly violating Iran's strict dress code. According to a report by a local committee, more than 90 journalists have been arrested or summoned over the past 10 months in different cities across the nation in what the authorities have described as so-called riots fomented by the West. The report also stated that the fate of 11 journalists, including 6 detained and 5 others awaiting verdicts, is still unknown. A meeting was held between Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and Interior Minister Matteo Piantedosi to discuss the upcoming set of safety regulations, which is anticipated in September. The measures include a strengthening of the police forces, interventions to prevent and combat youth violence, and to raise the security levels of the cities. Among the initiatives is also a move to enforce the removal of illegal immigrants more strictly in Italy, paying particular attention to those who behave violently and pose a threat to the safety of the citizens. One of the regulatory interventions in the pipeline includes a crackdown on the expulsion of irregular migrants, especially those who are problematic and dangerous with violent behavior. In response to Uganda's LGBTQ law, the World Bank has stated that it will stop granting new loans to that nation. The World Bank announced on Tuesday that it would halt project financing while it reviewed its LGBTQ procedures. The World Bank Group said that Uganda's Anti-Homosexuality Act fundamentally contradicts the group's values. Dominican friars of the province of St. Joseph are inviting the faithful to a full-day Rosary pilgrimage on September 30th. The national event celebrating the Rosary will be held in Washington, D.C. on the vigil of Rosary Sunday. There will be a recitation of the Rosary, Mass, and Eucharistic adoration alongside confessions and conferences. Renowned Dominican preachers, including Father Lawrence Liu and Father Gregory Pine, will be present at the event on September 30th. And those are your latest headlines. Join us again tomorrow for more. You can also visit us at swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.